Hello there friends and welcome. By viewer request, I've decided to make a guide of the best glaives that you can find in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. There is actually a surprising amount of glaives in the game, mostly because they are the favorite weapon of BAPHOMET'S, the Demon Lord. So a lot of the cultists you fight carry glaives. Plus they are also a favorite weapon of Shelling, SOSIEL's goddess, so he's a perfect party member to equip glaives. While they don't really have a high critical range unless you're playing a trickster build, they are innately reach weapons capable of attacking from great range, especially when your character is enlarged. So let's get started on our best glaives list, and as usual this will be in order of availability, how early you can find each one of these glaives. You can actually find the very first powerful glaive in the game even before Act 1 starts. Marching Terror. Whenever this +1 glaive, I know it says +2 here, I apologize for that. Some of the glaives will have a higher enhancement here because they are from my trickster party. But anyways, by default it is +1. Whenever it lands a hit on a new enemy the first time, the target takes 1d6 points of negative energy, which is pretty good. And most importantly, all other enemies in a 50-foot radius around the target must pass a will saving throw with a rather nice DC 17 or become frightened for 1 round, which means they'll flee from your character, which can result in proccing attacks of opportunity for you. The DC might seem low, but remember, you get this glaive extremely early, and the early game enemies don't tend to have high will. Remember, this effect is whenever you strike a new enemy, so you can actually hit multiple enemies with this, so long as it is a new target. Overall, this glaive is very solid and actually my main choice of glaive for the entire Act 1, and even quite a lot of Act 2 as well. You can get it by defeating SEELAH, the very first boss of the game, at the Shield Maze dungeon. Now a second very useful glaive that you can find during Act 1 is Dark Horn. It is cold iron, so perfect for bypassing demons' physical resistance. The enhancement is just +1, but it does have a neat property of dealing an extra 1d3 points of negative energy damage per hit. Unlike Marching Terror, this one is actually applied on every single hit. Do note that most enemies in the game don't actually resist negative energy, usually only undead tend to be immune. Almost all of the demons and cultists, however, do take full damage from this. You can actually find Dark Horn at the Canabres Marketplace map from a certain encounter with a cultist necromancer. The third very useful glaive we have in Wrath is Soulshear. It has the very unique adamantine quality, quite rare amongst weapons in Wrath of the Righteous, and some of the toughest enemies in the game have physical damage reduction only pierced by adamantine. This also lets you kill the infamous enemies from the Blackwater dungeon, so the cyber demons. The actual enchantments of this +3 glaive is super powerful as well, so whenever you kill a target with it, it will summon a demon until the end of the fight. And while you can only summon a single demon, it even has a secondary effect if a creature is already summoned, so every subsequent kill will heal your character for 1d8 plus 5 hit points and give you a stacking +1 bonus to attack rolls, quite powerful. Also, the demon summoned will be based on the enemy's level, starting as a Babal, which isn't really that useful, however eventually becoming Meriliths or even Balors. Meriliths themselves are pretty powerful because they are the demon with the highest number of attacks per round. They come with around 7 scimitars. And Balors of course are Balors. Not much needs to be said about them. The only downside is that it cannot be wielded by lawful good characters, but basically that's only SEELAH. SOSIEL, even though he's neutral good, can equip this just fine. The Soulshear glaive comes from the Staunton boss fight at the very end of Act 2. I'm pretty sure it is impossible to miss this one, as that is a mandatory story boss fight. Now when it comes to Act 3, I'd say this is where Finian starts shining. So for those that don't know, I already have a Finian guide that you can check linked to the side here or down below in the video description, but anyways, during Chapter 3, Finian will receive his first upgrade, turning him into a +3 Brilliant Energy Heartseeker weapon. Brilliant Energy is one of the most powerful properties in the entire game, because it can reduce enemies' armor class by a very big amount. On Unfair, for example, you can take around -8 points from the enemy's armor class. Heartseeker is always useful, of course, to negate concealment. Lastly, you can even deal an additional 1d6 points of force damage which is irresistible per hit. The only downside is that Brilliant Energy will not hit constructs or undead, but those aren't really that common in Wrath of the Righteous, nowhere near as much as demons and cultists, and other outsiders too. Now when it comes to the ultimate glaive of the game, if you've watched my recent video about the best new items from the latest DLC, the Treasure of the Midnight Isles, then you already know Mutilated Angel is the best new glaive in Wrath of the Righteous by far. It is adamantine just like Soulshear and has two extremely unique and very overpowered properties. So whenever you attack an evil creature with Mutilated Angel, you actually gain a +5 bonus to the attack rolls, and this can and will stack with other bonuses you have. Just +5 alone is already massive. And it even deals an additional 1d12 slashing damage on hit. Second, whenever it lands a hit on the enemy, it also inflicts a -1 penalty to their armor class until the end of combat, stacking for a very big -5. When you consider the +5 bonus to attack rolls, and then up to -5 to the enemy's armor class, this glaive will mark any enemy for death, no matter how powerful they are. The only downside is the -3 penalty to your charisma score, which you know isn't really that troublesome for most characters. Even if you are a charisma character, at the end game a -3 isn't going to be that painful, considering all of the other bonuses you have. To find Mutilated Angel, you have to defeat the penultimate boss of the new DLC, the Treasure of the Midnight Isles, something that can only be done at Chapter 5 for the integrated story mode version. Last but not least, I want to talk about a very special glaive, Aizerghaul, I hope that's how you pronounce it. Anyways, this is actually BAPHOMET'S unique weapon. Aizerghaul is a +5 adamantine anarchic unholy bleed glaive. Whenever it lands a hit on a good aligned creature or a devil, they must pass a fortitude saving throw of a pretty high amount, 38, or become unable to heal or receive healing for 1d3 rounds. This effect is actually kinda weak in my humble opinion, but anyways. Anarchic also doesn't matter much for Wrath, because most of the enemies we fight are actually chaotic aligned. Bleed can be useful because I don't believe it is subject to the enemy's damage reductions. As for Unholy, it's also somewhat niche because you know, it only affects creatures of good alignment, almost nothing in Wrath. Anyways, it certainly looks cool and of course it is BAPHOMET'S weapon, but the only way to acquire it, as far as I'm aware, is to defeat Baphomet in the Ascension ending battle. The problem is, well, after you defeat him and the Scary there's nothing left to do in the game basically ends right there. Even the first DLC, Inevitable Access, takes place before that, so yeah, you can't really do anything with this glaive. The reason I have it here is because I used the toy box mod to add it, just for viewing purposes. Well everyone, so this was it for my best glaives guide for Wrath of the Righteous. If more glaives come up during the Enhanced Edition, I'll be sure to update this guide. And it is also what I plan on doing with all of my other best items guide. Please remember to support the channel if you can, by liking, subscribing, and even becoming a channel member. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.